The Galactic Joy Index credits human with inventing the concept of spontaneous fun. Part 1. Doctor had been analyzing happiness data for 600 years. In all that time, nothing had ever surprised her. The annual Galactic Joy Index survey was as predictable as a star's. Every species followed their patterns. Recreation periods brought joy spikes. Festival seasons showed elevated readings. Work cycles displayed measured contentment. The universe made sense. Until the humans arrived. She stood before the Galactic Council now, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into worried rainbows. Around her sat representatives from 847 civilizations, each waiting to hear why she had called an emergency session. Emergency sessions were rare. The last one had been 73 years ago when they discovered a new meditation technique that improved their happiness by 0.03%. Honored Council, began, her voice chiming like struck glass. We have an anomaly. The words sent ripples through the chamber. The methodical leaned forward on their 6 legs. The harmonious stopped their gentle humming. Even the ancient contemplatives, who rarely paid attention to anything, focused their awareness on her. The new species, humanity, has broken our models. She activated the holographic display. Charts and graphs filled the air, showing data that made no sense. Their joy levels spike randomly throughout their cycles. There is no correlation with scheduled recreational periods, no alignment with cultural festivals, no pattern at all. Ambassador, the human representative, shifted in her seat. She was new to the council, having joined only 3 months ago when Earth had finally achieved the technological requirements for galactic membership. She had spent most of that time trying to understand why everyone scheduled everything, including fun. Perhaps the equipment malfunctioned, suggested Admiral L. His species valued precision above all else. We should recalibrate. We did, replied. 7 times. We tested the equipment on other species, perfect accuracy. We isolated the human data. The pattern remains, or rather the lack of pattern remains. She pulled up a specific example. This human experienced a significant joy spike at 1400 hours on a standard work cycle. No scheduled event, no apparent trigger. When questioned, the subject reported, and I quote, "I made a funny face and I couldn't stop laughing." Silence filled the chamber. Several species activated their translation matrices, certain something had been lost in conversion. Making faces was communication. Why would communication cause unscheduled joy? There's more, continued. She displayed another graph. This spike occurred during a commute. The human was traveling from habitation to workplace, a purely functional activity, yet happiness levels jumped 47%. What was the cause? Asked in, chief sociologist of the Logic Consortium. Her people had mapped every social interaction pattern in the known galaxy. She prided herself on understanding behavior. The human reported, "A good song came on the radio and I started dancing in my car." More confused silence. The who were the galaxy's premier musicians, found this particularly baffling. Music was for scheduled appreciation sessions. Concerts followed strict protocols. One did not simply dance in vehicles during functional transit. Ambassador cleared her throat. All eyes and their various sensory organ equivalents turned to her. She suddenly felt very small in a chamber designed for species much larger than humans. "If I may explain," she said, standing, "humans don't always plan when we have fun. Sometimes we just do things because we feel like it." "Feel like it?" N repeated the words as if they were from an alien language, which technically they were. "Yes, like sometimes you're doing something normal, maybe washing dishes or walking somewhere, and suddenly you just want to sing, or dance, or make jokes with whoever is nearby. You don't think about it. You just do it." This chief administrator tapped his data pad with precise movements. "But who approves these activities? What is the efficiency calculation? How do you ensure proper resource allocation for unscheduled recreational periods? Blinked, nobody approves it, there's no calculation, we just have fun. The chamber erupted in voices, chirps, harmonic tones, and electromagnetic pulses that served various species as speech. The concept was too alien, too chaotic, too impossible. Raised her hand for silence. The council gradually quieted, though confusion remained thick in the air. Ambassador said carefully, are you saying that humans engage in joy-producing activities without scheduling them, without authorization, without predetermined parameters? Well, yes, we schedule some things, sure. Birthday parties, vacations, movie nights, but a lot of fun just happens. Someone suggests getting ice cream and you go. You're playing a board game and someone makes a silly rule and everyone laughs. You're walking in snow and you suddenly have a snowball fight. Snowball fight. The contemplative elder spoke for the first time, his ancient voice like wind through caves. You battle with frozen precipitation. For what strategic purpose? No purpose, it's just fun. The word hung in the air. Fun, just fun, no schedule, no purpose, no efficiency, just fun. Admiral L stood, his military bearing rigid. This is concerning. Random joy-seeking behavior suggests poor impulse control. Lack of scheduling indicates insufficient discipline. How does your civilization function with such chaos? Felt her temper rise but kept it controlled. She was representing all of humanity. We function just fine, better than fine. Our scientists are creative. Our artists are innovative. Our people are happy. Maybe because we know how to have fun without needing permission. But the waste, insisted. The inefficiency. Time spent on unscheduled activities is time not spent on productive tasks. Is being happy not productive? Asked. That stopped them. In all their data analysis, their efficiency calculations, their careful scheduling of recreational periods to maintain optimal psychological health, none of them had considered that question. Happiness was a metric to manage, not a goal in itself. N was scrolling through her database frantically. Ambassador, we've analyzed human linguistic patterns. You have numerous terms for this concept: goofing off, horsing around, shenanigans, monkey business, tomfoolery. Your language contains at least 47 distinct words for unplanned recreational activities. Sounds about right, said. Other species have zero words for this concept because it does not exist for them. The weight of that realization settled over the council. 847 civilizations, thousands of years of galactic history, trillions of beings across countless worlds, and not one of them had ever done something fun just because they felt like it. Looked at the data again, seeing it differently now. Those random spikes weren't errors. They were spontaneity. They were humans being alive in a way the galaxy had forgotten, or perhaps had never known. This requires further investigation, she announced. We need to understand this phenomenon, its origins, its effects, its implications for galactic society. The council agreed quickly. A committee was formed. Observers would be sent to Earth and human colonies. Teams would analyze human behavior patterns. Experts would interview subjects. The full resources of galactic science would be brought to bear on this mystery. As the session ended and representatives filed out, Admiral L approached Ambassador. His face, which had evolved to display no emotion, somehow managed to look worried. Ambassador, you must understand. What you describe sounds to many of us like a psychological disorder, impulsive behavior, lack of control. We want to help your species, but we need to understand if this is a problem that requires treatment. Smiled, which made Elle even more uncomfortable. Humans smiled so much, at such random times. Admiral, let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something that surprised you, something that wasn't on your schedule? He thought for a long moment. His species lived for 200 years, surely in all that time. Never, he finally admitted. But I am disciplined. This is a virtue. Maybe, said gently. Or maybe you've never known what you're missing. She left him standing there, surrounded by the careful order of galactic civilization, thinking about a human concept he didn't have words for, wondering what it might feel like to do something just because he felt like it. Wondering if 600 species, in all their wisdom, might have forgotten something important about being alive. Part 2. Lieutenant had served in the fleet for 30 years. He had surveyed hostile planets, mapped dangerous asteroid fields, and maintained discipline on vessels carrying thousands of crew. He had never been confused by an assignment until now. His orders were simple: observe human behavior on their spacecraft and report any instances of spontaneous recreational activity. The concept still made no sense to him, but orders were orders. He had boarded the human transport vessel Wandering Star 2 weeks ago, ready to document inefficiency and chaos. Instead, he found a crew that somehow got more done than his own people, while appearing to take nothing seriously. He was watching them now during Gamma shift maintenance. 5 humans moved through the engine room, running diagnostics and replacing components. Standard procedure. Had relaxed, thinking perhaps the spontaneous fun thing was exaggerated. Then someone started singing. It began with the engineer named Martinez. A simple melody hummed while checking coolant levels. Then Jackson, working on the port side, added harmony. Within 30 seconds, all 5 humans were singing together, their voices blending in complex patterns while their hands continued working. Checked his schedule. No musical appreciation period was listed. He checked crew files. None of these humans had scheduled personal recreation time. He checked his sensors. The song had no communication function, conveyed no necessary information. They were just singing because they wanted to. "Excuse me," he interrupted, his voice tight. "Who authorized this musical performance?" The humans stopped, looking at him with expressions he was learning to read. Amusement. They found his confusion funny. "Authorized?" Martinez laughed. "Nobody, man. The chorus just popped into my head and I couldn't help it. You know how it is." Did not know how it was. In 30 years of service, he had never once had a song pop into his head during work. Music was for designated appreciation chambers, scheduled in advance, experienced in proper silence. "The efficiency loss," he began. "We're ahead of schedule," Jackson pointed out, gesturing to the maintenance log. "By 40 minutes. We always finish early on Gamma shift." "How?" "It's more fun this way," Martinez said, as if that explained everything. "Work goes faster when you're having a good time." This violated everything understood about discipline and productivity, yet the data supported it. He added this to his report, though he suspected the committee would think he was malfunctioning. Across the galaxy, sociologist N was having a similar crisis of understanding. She sat in the dining area of a human family's habitat, her sensor array recording everything while trying to comprehend what she was witnessing. The family had scheduled this meal. So far, so good. They had prepared food according to plan, still normal. They had gathered at the designated time, perfectly reasonable. Then the small humans, children called Sarah and Tommy, had begun throwing food at each other. N's first thought was aggression, but the children were laughing. Then the adult humans, initially stern, began laughing too. Then they joined in. Food flew through the air. Precious nutrients, energy resources, products of agricultural labor used as projectiles. For fun. "Stop, stop." N's translator probably made her sound more panicked than she intended. "The waste, the inefficiency, why are you doing this?" The father, still grinning with something called mashed potato in his hair, shrugged. "Kids started it. Sometimes you just gotta roll with it. We'll clean up. No harm done." "But you're teaching them that wasting food is acceptable." The mother wiped gravy from her face. We're teaching them that sometimes being silly with your family is more important than being perfect, that joy matters, that some memories are worth a little mess. N species had raised children according to optimal development schedules for 10,000 years. They had precise protocols for every stage of growth. Nowhere in their vast database of child-rearing practices was there a category for food fights. Yet these small humans were laughing harder than any consortium child she had ever observed. Their parents were bonding with them in ways that wouldn't show up on any efficiency chart, but somehow seemed more real than anything in her protocols. She filed her report that evening, recommending psychological evaluation for the entire species. She tried to ignore how much the family's laughter had stayed with her. The most troubling observations came from economists. Her people, though, had built a civilization on pure mathematics. Everything had a number, everything had a value, everything had a cost-benefit analysis. She had spent 3 weeks in a human workplace, a technology company that made communications devices. She had witnessed something that broke her models so completely she had to rebuild them from scratch. Pranks. The humans called them pranks, elaborate schemes to surprise there with harmless tricks. She watched them spend hours planning. She saw them use creativity and problem-solving skills that would have made them valuable in any role. She calculated the time cost, the resource allocation, the opportunity loss. It was staggering. In 1 week, the team spent approximately 47 hours planning and executing what they called the Great Stapler Relocation, where they hid their manager's stapler in increasingly absurd locations, each discovery leading to another hiding spot. 47 hours, nearly 6 full work cycles for nothing. Except the humans were more productive than any workforce she had studied. They met deadlines early. They exceeded quotas. They innovated constantly. Their satisfaction scores were off the charts. Their retention rate was 98%, while comparable workplaces averaged 42%. Cornered their manager, a woman named Phillips, demanding explanation. "How does your team accomplish anything?" asked, her numerical display flickering with distress. "The pranks alone represent a 17% productivity loss according to standard calculations." Phillips laughed, which humans did constantly and which found increasingly disturbing. "Your calculations don't account for morale. People who enjoy coming to work are more creative. Teams that laugh together collaborate better. Yeah, we goof around, but we also care about each other and our work. That matters more than any efficiency chart." This is not logical. Maybe not, but it works. Watch the team that afternoon. Someone had filled an office with balloons. The target, a programmer named, stood in the doorway laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Within minutes, the team had organized an impromptu balloon volleyball game in the parking lot. No schedule, no authorization, just 20 humans and a few thousand balloons and more joy than had seen in her entire career studying workplace optimization. They were back at their desks 40 minutes later, still smiling, still energized. By evening, they had completed what should have taken 3 days of work. The numbers didn't lie, even when they made no sense. The 3 observers compiled their reports and presented them to the committee. Described spontaneous singing on spacecraft. N detailed food fights and family bonding. Showed calculations that suggested human inefficiency somehow created superior efficiency. Doctor read everything twice, then a third time. 600 years of experience told her this was impossible. The data told her it was real. "There is more," she said, calling up additional findings. "We discovered related behaviors, inside jokes, references that bond groups, shenanigans, playful misbehavior, tomfoolery, deliberate silliness. What humans call hold my beer moments, impulsive actions done for excitement. Their language is rich with terms for this." She paused, her crystalline structure dimming slightly. "Other species have no such terms. None. In the entire galactic vocabulary database, only human languages contain words for unprompted, unscheduled, purposeless fun. The committee sat in silence. Each member was thinking the same thing, though none wanted to say it first. Finally, Admiral L spoke. "Are we the ones with the problem?" The question hung in the air like a star about to go supernova, ready to change everything. Part 3. Ambassador stood before the full Galactic Council once more, but this time she was ready. She had spent the past month preparing for this moment, gathering evidence, building her case. Behind her, screens displayed images and videos from Earth and human colonies across space. "You asked me to explain spontaneous fun," she began. "You sent observers to judge whether humanity has a psychological problem. I'm here to show you that maybe, just maybe, we have something you've forgotten." She activated the first video. A human child, maybe 5 years old, jumped into a puddle during rain, pure joy on her face. No schedule told her to do it. No authority approved it. She just saw water and wanted to splash. "This is Maya," said. "She's experiencing spontaneous joy. Watch her mother's face." The mother in the video looked annoyed for exactly 2 seconds. Then she smiled. Then she jumped in the puddle too. Then they were both laughing, soaked and happy, dancing in the rain while their schedule fell apart around them. "Now watch this," continued, switching videos. An elderly human man, maybe 80 years old, dancing alone in his kitchen while cooking breakfast. Terrible dancing, completely unself-conscious, moving to music only he could hear. "This is my grandfather," said, her voice soft. "He died last year. He never had much money, never traveled far, worked the same job for 50 years. But ask anyone who knew him and they'll tell you he was the happiest person they ever met, because he knew how to find joy in ordinary moments, because he never needed permission to dance." She showed them more. Teenagers starting a snowball fight during a school break, celebrating nothing in particular with an impromptu party, musicians jamming on a street corner because they felt like it, an old couple making faces at each other across a restaurant table, married for 60 years and still playing. The council watched in silence. For species that scheduled their joy, these images were revolutionary. They showed something that couldn't be planned, couldn't be optimized, couldn't be improved through efficiency protocols. They showed being alive. "We have data too," said, bringing up graphs. "Human psychology research spanning hundreds of years. Spontaneous play reduces stress. Unplanned social activities strengthen relationships. Creative improvisation enhances problem solving. The best moments of human life, the memories we cherish most, often come from unexpected joy." She let that sink in before continuing. "Your observers found our behavior confusing, inefficient, maybe even concerning, but they also saw the results. We're productive, we're creative, we're happy. Not because we schedule happiness, but because we let it happen." N raised her hand. "But Ambassador, without structure, how do you ensure everyone experiences adequate recreational opportunities? How do you measure life satisfaction? How do you optimize for?" "We don't," said simply. "We just live. Sometimes that means planning a vacation. Sometimes it means abandoning your plans because something better came along. Sometimes it means working hard. Sometimes it means stopping work to have a water balloon fight because it's hot and someone has balloons. Life isn't something to optimize. It's something to experience." The administrator spoke up, his voice careful. "You say we've forgotten something, but we have no record of our species ever engaging in such behavior. We evolved differently. We found efficiency and structure. These brought us to the stars. And we found chaos and play, and they brought us here too," replied. "I'm not saying your way is wrong. I'm saying there might be another way, a both-and instead of either-or." She took a breath and made her proposal. "What if humans taught other species about spontaneous fun, not to replace your schedules and protocols, but to supplement them, to give you something you never knew you were missing?" That is a significant cultural intervention, Admiral L said. It could disrupt civilizations that have functioned efficiently for. Or it could make them better, countered. Your own observers reported that human workplaces outperform similar operations in other species. Our ships have higher crew satisfaction. Our families have stronger bonds. Maybe disruption isn't always bad. Doctor had been quiet until now, her crystalline body processing everything. Finally, she spoke. Ambassador, I have a question, a personal one. Of course. You asked Admiral L when he last did something that surprised himself. I have been thinking about that question. In 600 years, I have never once acted spontaneously. I have never done something just because I wanted to in that moment. Everything has been scheduled, measured, optimized. Her voice cracked slightly, a sound like fracturing glass. Is it too late to learn? Felt tears prick her eyes. This ancient being, 6 times older than any human alive, asking if she could still learn to play. It's never too late. Then I propose an experiment, said, addressing the council. We allow Ambassador to teach volunteers about spontaneous fun. We measure the results. We proceed based on evidence. The debate lasted hours. Some council members worried about chaos, inefficiency, loss of order. Others were curious. A few noticed looked almost hungry, as if she had named something they'd been missing without knowing it. Finally, they voted. The measure passed. Humanity would become the galaxy's teachers of spontaneous joy. The next 6 months changed everything. And a team of human volunteers traveled to worlds across the galaxy, teaching species who had forgotten how to play, or perhaps had never known. The methodical were her first students. She took them to a park and taught them a simple game, tag, just running, chasing, laughing for no purpose. The first session was awkward. They kept asking for rules, objectives, win conditions, kept saying there weren't any, just run, just play. By the third session, something clicked. A young named tagged her friend and ran away laughing, not because it was scheduled, not because it was efficient, just because it was fun. The harmonious learned about improvisation, creating music in the moment without planning every note. At first, they were horrified by the disorder. But then they discovered jazz, and something in their carefully controlled culture cracked open. Suddenly, their harmonies had room for surprise, for individual expression, for joyful mistakes that became new melodies. Even the military found value in spontaneity. Admiral L himself participated in what humans called a surprise party for one of his officers. The planning was still structured, yes, but the joy on the officer's face when they revealed themselves was unscheduled and genuine. L reported feeling something he'd never experienced in 200 years. Pride mixed with delight mixed with connection. Later, alone, he tried dancing in his quarters. No music, no schedule. Just movement because his body wanted to move. He felt ridiculous. He felt alive. He understood why humans smiled so much. The Joy Index survey that year showed unprecedented changes. Every species that had participated in the spontaneous fun programs reported increased happiness. But more than that, they reported feeling more connected to each other, more creative in their work, more present in their lives. The galaxy was learning to play again, or maybe learning it for the first time. Was in a council session a year later when it happened. The meeting was routine, discussing trade agreements and resource allocation. Boring but necessary. She was half paying attention when someone, a representative, suddenly started a call and response song. Others joined in. Within moments, half the council was singing together, their various biology producing a harmony that shouldn't have worked but did. There was no agenda item for this, no scheduled recreational break. It just happened because someone felt like it and others responded. When it ended, there was silence, then laughter, then applause from species whose cultures had never applauded before. Ambassador smiled. The revolution was complete. After thousands of years of scheduling every moment, of optimizing every activity, of forgetting that joy could be spontaneous, The galaxy had finally learned to play. That evening she wrote in her journal, "Today, I saw the ancient contemplative elder make a joke. An actual joke, spontaneous and clever that made everyone laugh. A being 2,000 years old discovering humor. If I never accomplish anything else in my life, I'll have this. We taught the galaxy how to have fun." She closed the journal and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there on 847 worlds, beings were doing something they'd never done before. Dancing for no reason, singing without planning, playing games with no winners, making each other laugh just because. Humanity hadn't invented spontaneous fun. They'd just never forgotten it. And now, neither would the galaxy. The Galactic Joy Index would forever credit humans with this gift, but knew the truth. They hadn't given the galaxy something new. They'd reminded it of something ancient and essential. That life wasn't meant to be optimized. It was meant to be lived, that the best moments couldn't be scheduled. They could only be seized spontaneously, joyfully, in the beautiful chaos of being alive. And that sometimes, the most revolutionary act in the universe was simply to play.